So joining us here on Live Now from Fox right now to go more in depth on this is the author of Rethinking Economic Growth, Dan Varroney. Dan, thanks so much for being with us.
Pleasure to be with you.
So the BLS statistics just reported 115,000 jobs added in April. Unemployment sitting at 4.3%. Given all the mixed signals that we've seen in the economy recently, what is your immediate read on this morning's headline? Do you think we're looking at resilience maybe, or a warning sign?
I think it's absolutely resilient. So when you take this month's jobs numbers and last month's jobs numbers, we're looking at 300,000 new jobs created, and that is just remarkable. Keep in mind a lot of uncertainty regarding the Iran conflict, and the fact that we're creating that many jobs in this economy shows that we've got resilience. And when I talk about resilience, we've got the Atlanta Federal Reserve projecting growth of over 3% in the second quarter. That's another example of resilience. And when we talk about resilience, you and I have spoken quite a bit about small business jobs. So the private sector jobs report also came out this week. It came out on Wednesday. 109,000 jobs were created. 60% of those jobs were small business jobs. And the jobs created in the private sector pretty much mirrored what we heard from the BLS report earlier today.
So we saw significant job creation in healthcare as well as transportation and warehousing companies, but we did see a noticeable cool down in manufacturing, which cut 2,000 jobs in April, and they have shed 66,000 jobs just over the past year, despite Trump's protectionist policies aimed at creating factory jobs. How much of that do you think is a temporary cyclical blip versus maybe a permanent structural shift in our economy?
I think it's a temporary blip. I think on the basis of the investment as a result of policy, the investment around plants and equipment, the investments for foreign-owned companies to locate here in this country and create jobs, as well as their suppliers. I believe there will be a high volume of manufacturing jobs created through the end of the year and well into next year and the year after. I'm highly confident on that. I hear a lot from the small business community that they are making investments. In a number of cases, they're hoping with Kevin Warsh taking over the Fed week after next, that they will see interest rate cuts, making loans more affordable, and they will invest.
So average hourly earnings came in at 3.6% annual increase. Are wages finally keeping up with the real cost of living for the average American worker? Or do you think businesses are maybe having to overpay just to get people in the door?
What I was really encouraged by the report is that workers are working more hours. That was very encouraging in the BLS report today. And the fact that wages are up like 3.7%, they're well over inflation. And that says that wages are outpacing inflation. And the other thing that I feel very good about is that employers feel very good about where they are in terms of the quality of workers they have nowadays. That's why they're paying more, and they're also getting far better output.
So we know the Federal Reserve, of course, watches this wage growth data very closely as an inflation indicator. Does today's report give the Fed the green light that they might want, or do you think it complicates their strategy on interest rates?
So I think what they're looking at interest rates, first of all, Kevin Warsh is going to bring an entirely different approach. And as he has testified, he's going to bring a Main Street approach and look at what he can do as chair of the Federal Reserve to bring the Federal Reserve in line with Main Street and what they need. I'm encouraged because that speaks to what is small business and what small business needs. That's why I'm confident that in time, he's going to bring interest rates down. I think in terms of a decision in May as to whether or not they raise rates or lower rates, I think they may hold the line at the next Federal Reserve meeting, and sometime over the summer, they will lower rates.
So earlier this week, the ADP private payroll report showed that while small and large businesses are still hiring, mid-sized companies have essentially flatlined. They don't have the enterprise cash reserves, but they lack the small business agility. Did we see that same softness in the middle confirmed in today's data, would you say?
I think we did. But what I will tell you about the private sector data is that, you know, again, because I've researched this and interviewed on it and written a lot about it, that I wasn't surprised to see the small business job growth in the ADP numbers. I mean, think about it. Remember I say that 2 of 3 new private sector jobs come from small business, and it was about right in the recent ADP private sector jobs report. Small businesses are incredibly resilient. They think quickly and they act quickly on their feet. They're taking full advantage of technology. In a number of cases, they're not shying away from AI. They're utilizing it as a force multiplier. So I think that small businesses, especially the companies with 20 or fewer employees, are really getting a beat on jobs growth and moving their companies forward in an uncertain economy.
You work directly with trade association CEOs through the Strategic Guidance Lab. When a jobs report like this one drops, what is the immediate tactical takeaway that you give them? How should they be advising their members to navigate this specific labor market?
So I think the biggest thing is that despite challenges and uncertainty in the Middle East, that the U.S. economy has got resilience. There's underlying growth in the economy in terms of durable goods investment, capital goods investment, as well as jobs growth, that businesses are spending money, that we're seeing investment in expansion. People are taking full advantage of the big, beautiful law, and that they should be confident in the next 6 to 9 months and into 2027. That's what I will tell them next week.
So, given the talent shortages that are still plaguing certain industries, how can businesses use strategic partnerships maybe to build more reliable talent pipelines?
I think that businesses need to look at what they have in their communities. So if they've got trade schools or they've got community colleges or they've got small business networks, they all need to work together to identify the skills that they need and then leverage partnerships to bring workers in. I've seen it work in states like Alabama and South Carolina, and I'm confident that this too can work throughout the country in terms of building these partnerships with community colleges, with technical schools, and bringing workers in what can be a reliable pipeline.
So you've constantly reminded policymakers that small businesses generate 2 out of every 3 new jobs. Looking at today's breakdown, are small and mid-sized employers still driving this labor market, or are they maybe being squeezed by the cost of capital and inflation?
I think that small businesses are leading in job growth, and that is so impressive in challenging and transformational times. Small businesses are still leading in job creation. And what that does is I think it really speaks to the community-minded nature of small businesses. They really think about who they are in the community, what their role is in the community, and how they can work with other small businesses and really add value in all those communities. It's very impressive.
Dan, is there anything else that you want to add that really stuck out to you about this report before we let you go?
I think the biggest thing that stuck out to me in this report, from my perspective, is that the American economy is on solid footing. 2 or 3 months ago, there were a number of concerns in the economics community saying, things could be slowing down. We're potentially headed for a recession. I completely disagree with that. These numbers, the retail sales numbers, the Atlanta Fed numbers, the wage numbers, the hours worked numbers, all tell me the economy is in solid footing, and that I think we're looking at a strong growth trajectory through the end of this year.
All right, Dan Varroney, thank you so much. We really appreciate your expertise here on Live Now from Fox.
Pleasure. Have a good evening.